Hi there, I'm Emily with the Gulf Council, and this is a public hearing video on Shrimp Amendment 19, which considers what to do when the shrimp permit moratorium expires in October of 2026. A little bit of background. So the Council established a federal commercial shrimp permit in 2001 through Amendment 11. After that permit was created, the price of fuel went up and the price of shrimp went down, which caused an exodus from the shrimp fishery. So in 2006, the Council created a 10-year moratorium on the issuance of new permits through Amendment 13. Now this was done because the Council reasoned that as shrimpers left the fishery, eventually it would reach a level where the fishery was profitable again. And once it got there, they wanted to prevent a bunch of new vessels from re-entering the fishery. So in 2016, the Council sort of reviewed the moratorium 10 years later and noticed that the number of permits continued to decline and therefore extended the permit moratorium. So now we look ahead to October of 2026 when this permit moratorium is set to expire yet again. And what you'll notice in this table is that, since 2008, which is the data that I'm showing, the number of permits has continued to decline pretty steadily. So the Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation and Management Act does require that the Council consider a number of factors when establishing limited access programs. I thought it would be helpful to run through those in context of our shrimp fishery today. So the first factor we consider is participation in the fishery. So as I had mentioned, upon implementation of the moratorium, projections indicated that the number of vessels would continue to decline due to high fuel cost and competition with imports. Now, we don't expect that this problem would be resolved by changes to the moratorium. Next, we consider historical fishing practices and dependence on the fishery, and reason that vessels that are forced out of the fishery over time due to the decline in shrimp prices, that problem would not be resolved by changes in the moratorium either. Next, when we consider economics of the fishery, we consider that they are largely outside of the scope or control of shrimpers or fisheries managers, meaning that those issues also would not be resolved by changes in the moratorium. Next, we consider the capability of vessels in the fishery to engage in other fisheries. Now, in the case of the federal shrimping fleet, they are large and specialized vessels, but we don't know the extent to which vessels might or could re-enter the fishery if profitability does improve. Next, we consider cultural and social factors relevant to the fishery and communities. And extending the moratorium could actually continue protections for those folks that are engaged in the fishery. We'll move on next to fair and equitable distribution of access privileges in the fishery. And while there is a moratorium and permits have decreased over time, they still are available for both purchase and transfer of existing permits. Finally, we have to take other considerations into account. In the case of shrimping, the bycatch of juvenile red snapper is an important factor, and it is expected that the moratorium on permits does indirectly control shrimp effort on federal waters and therefore does indirectly control the volume of bycatch. So we are here to determine if limiting access to the federal permits is necessary on a temporary or a permanent basis in order to maintain the biological, social, and economic benefits to the shrimp fishery that are achieved under the moratorium. Next, we want to make sure that we protect federally managed Gulf shrimp stocks while promoting catch efficiency, promoting economic efficiency and stability, and also in order to obtain the best available information with which to manage our fishery. So there are three simple options being considered here. The first option is the no action option, meaning on October 26, 2026, the federal Gulf commercial shrimp permit moratorium would expire and commercial shrimp vessel permits would become open access permits and they would be available to any eligible participants. The next option would extend our current moratorium for another 10 years. And then the third option, which is the council's current preferred option, would essentially make the moratorium permanent. But in order to do that, you would have to create a federal limited access permit for commercial shrimp vessels in the Gulf. And then any federally permitted shrimp vessels who have valid permits as of the expiration date of the moratorium, which is October 26, 2026, would be automatically eligible for one of these new federal limited access shrimping permits. Now, those federal permits would still have to be renewed every year, and they would have the same renewal, transfer, and reporting requirements that were associated with the moratorium permits. One thing to note, this option would require the review of the limited access permit 10 years after the implementation of that amendment. So we want to hear your feedback before taking final action during our November 2025 meeting. In order to send us your comments, you can either visit our online portal and submit a comment there, or you can simply email us at gulfcouncil@gulfcouncil.org. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and send us your thoughts.